Hey there! Today we are cooking with tomatoes, garlic, onions, butter, sugar, and spices. On this episode of What Do You Make of This, I'm going to teach you how to make a quick and easy tomato sauce. So today I'm going to show you how to make the most basic, really entry-level spaghetti and tomato sauce for dinner. It's a great crowd pleaser, it's a very quick and easy meal to put together on a weeknight, and the sauce that I'm going to teach you how to make today really only uses 3 major ingredients: tomatoes, garlic, and onions. Beyond that, you can really mix and match different flavors and build upon that base to make it your own special sauce. And while there are a lot of really great tomato sauces on the market, this sauce is so easy to make, it only takes a few minutes longer than it takes to cook the spaghetti. So for me, on a busy weeknight, I like to just do it myself. I'll show you how easy it is. So the first thing I'm going to start with is just some olive oil into a hot pan. If you don't have olive oil, canola oil, vegetable oil, anything like that is totally fine. And I'm going to just heat up about a tablespoon over medium-high heat. And my pan is already heating up, so this oil is going to come to temperature very quickly. So, to that oil, I am going to go in with 1 chopped onion. And by the way, the onion, you can really chop it any way you like to. So if you really like the texture and the flavor of onions, you can do very long ribbons, you can do big chunks, that's totally fine. If you kind of want to hide the onions, if you don't want them to be the star of your sauce, I've even grated it into a very fine paste and it just melts into the sauce. The flavor is there, but the texture is not. So I'm going to get these onions cooking, and I'm also going to just turn the heat down on my pan a little bit because I don't want them to brown. I just want them to soften a little. And as they soften, it's going to lend a really nice flavor to the sauce so that it doesn't just taste like plain tomatoes. That's good, but we can do better. So I'm going to give these onions just a little bit of a head start. And to them, I'm going to be adding some minced garlic. So I have got today about a teaspoon of minced garlic, but this is entirely up to you. If you like a really strong garlic flavor, hey, go nuts. You can put as much garlic in this sauce as you want. If you're not big on the garlic, use a little. Use none. It's totally okay. For me though, a tomato sauce isn't really a tomato sauce without the garlic in it, so I do like to add a little, but not so much that it just completely overwhelms the sauce. So into this pan, I'm going to go with about a teaspoon of minced garlic. Just get that bowl out of the way. And watch your heat here because, like I had said, I'm preheating my pan to kind of keep things moving along quickly, but you do not want to burn the garlic. It gets very bitter and it's not a good flavor in your sauce. So keep an eye on things. I'm just going to move it around a little bit and make sure the heat looks good, which it does. So this really is kind of the base for our sauce. Things are happening very quickly here. It's looking good. So to this, I am using canned diced tomatoes. You can use any tomato you like. You can use whole tomatoes, you can use fresh tomatoes that you chop up if they're in season. I can always count on diced canned tomatoes to have a really nice flavor. The only thing is if you're using canned tomatoes especially, you want to drain them a little bit. I'll show you what I mean here. So I've just set the whole can of tomatoes into a strainer over a big glass bowl, and there's about a cup of liquid that drains away from these tomatoes when you do that. That's a lot of liquid, and because we're going to be reducing this sauce, you want to get rid of that now so you're not standing here waiting for the sauce to reduce and thicken on you. If you're using whole tomatoes, by the way, you want to crush them over your strainer so that they break up because you don't want to be eating whole chunks of tomatoes in your sauce, but also because you want to get that liquid that's in the center of the tomatoes out. So enough on that, I'm going to get this liquid out of the way. You can keep it, by the way, it's really great to put into soups. I like to put it into rice when I'm making steamed rice to just give it a little extra flavor. But today, it is not going into this sauce. I only want the tomatoes. Get that strainer out of the way too. There we go. So I'm going to start mixing this up and bringing everything together. And so you can see by straining those tomatoes, we already have a really nice thick sauce. It's not going to take much now to bring this together. As I cook the tomatoes though, they are going to release a little bit of liquid, so it's going to go from being really, really thick to softening just a little bit. And now that I've got the tomatoes in the pan, I can turn that heat up to a medium-high and really get things cooking. So this right here is essentially the foundation of this quick tomato sauce. From here, I'm going to add a few different spices and seasonings just to give it a little extra flavor and a little extra body. You want to take some help where you can get it when you're making a quick sauce like this. If it's a slow sauce that you're cooking all day, it doesn't need as much because all of the flavors really have time to extract. But when you're cooking in a hurry, you want to give it a little help along the way and add some extra spices and some extra herbs just to give it a little more body and a little more dimension. So now that I've got the garlic, the onions, and the tomatoes really nicely incorporated, I am going to go in with some black pepper. I'm going to do about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon, just depends on how much pepper that you like, and some salt. Now, a note on the salt, if you're using canned tomatoes have all different levels of salt. There is now no salt added, there is now reduced salt, and then there is the fully salted tomatoes, we'll call them. So check your label, see what you're working with, and adjust your salt as needed. My tomatoes already had salt in them, so I'm just going to put about 1/4 teaspoon just to give it a little extra flavor. And another thing I'm going to add, which might seem a little strange, is a little bit of sugar. So the reason I'm going to add some sugar is the tomatoes are very acidic, especially when they're canned tomatoes, or honestly, even when they're fresh tomatoes. I'm not going to be making a sweet sauce, but by treating your sugar basically like salt and just giving a little sprinkle, it will help to extract some of that natural sweetness that the tomatoes have. So just like I did with the salt, I'm going to do about 1/4 to maybe 1/2 teaspoon of sugar. Just plain white sugar works absolutely fine. Get the lid back on so I don't send my sugar flying while I'm talking, and give it a bit of a mix. It's one of those things that you won't know it's there, but if you've made it this way before, you'll notice when it's missing. And if you don't know what I mean, try it for yourself, and the day that you do not add the sugar to the sauce, you'll go, wow, that's true. It is a little more acidic and just a little less sweet. I am also going to be adding in a little bit of crushed red pepper flake just because I like it spicy. If you're not a fan of the spice, by all means, leave it out. If you like it really spicy, hey, go nuts. I'm gonna do somewhere in the middle. I'm just going to do about 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. That was about 1/4 teaspoon. That feels right for me today. And just get that mixed in. Every time I add the spices, I'd like to just give it another stir. To incorporate, but also just to make sure that over this heat, nothing is sticking, because I'm still waiting for these tomatoes to kind of keep reducing and keep releasing their juices. So I just want to make sure that nothing is going to burn here. And then lastly, for now, I'm going to add some Italian seasoning. So Italian seasoning has parsley, basil, thyme, oregano, rosemary. Some blends have a few extra spices. If you don't have Italian seasoning, any combination of the spices I just said will work just fine. I'm going to use not a lot of it because I find it can be a little overwhelming, especially the oregano can kind of start to taste very floury. So I'm just going to do about 1/2 teaspoon at most of the Italian seasoning and just get that mixed in. So give this a final stir here. And this is really the basis of the tomato sauce. Right here, all I'm going to do is just let this cook. I'm gonna turn my heat down to about a medium low. That's looking good. And I'm just going to let this hang out and cook a little bit more. And what's going to happen is the onions are going to soften, the garlic is going to keep softening, and all of the different flavors are going to really have a chance to come together. So next to me, I have got some boiling water with nothing in it yet. I'm just going to be doing a plain, simple spaghetti. So to my boiling water, I'm gonna get my heat way up there. I'm going to go in very generously with about 1 tablespoon of salt. And I've talked about this in other episodes. This is your only chance to season the pasta itself. So really make sure you get some salt in there. I'm also just going to use my same spoon to give it a stir. It's all going to the same place anyway. I don't mind if there's a little bit of tomato floating around in there. Okay. And then to that, I am going to drop my pasta. So here's the thing. This pasta is going to take about 10 minutes to cook. No spaghetti left behind. That's going in there. So I'm going to get this into the pan. It's going to take a second. I don't have a ton of water in here because I'm actually going to be using this pasta water to help finish the sauce. And despite how counterintuitive this is going to sound, we're going to use the pasta water to thicken the sauce. Yes, you heard me correctly. So I'm just going to work these noodles into this water. I've only got about 1/3 to maybe 1/2 pot of water for the spaghetti that I'm using. That's because I really want to pull some of the starches from the pasta into that water so we can put the starches into our sauce. My sauce is looking a little on the dry side though, so I'm just going to use my wooden spoon here. I'm not even gonna get a ton of water, maybe 1/4 cup at most, just to make sure nothing sticks. So while this spaghetti cooks for 10 minutes, I'm going to let this sauce continue to cook over medium-low. And when that spaghetti is ready, the sauce is just about ready as well. I'll show you what it looks like on the other side. All right, so in 10 minutes time, the pasta has had a chance to cook and the spaghetti sauce has really had a chance to meld together. The onions are a lot softer, the garlic has really infused its flavor, and even the dried herbs that I had put into it originally have softened up, so everything is really nice and mellow and come together. By the way, you don't have to use spaghetti. This sauce is great on literally any pasta or anything. I know there's a lot of really cool noodles out there now. There's, you know, zucchini noodles and beet noodles. Anything you like, you can absolutely pair this sauce over. I just did spaghetti today because I want to keep this as classic as possible. So my noodles are ready. I'm just going to fish them out of this pot, like so. I'm not even going to worry about draining them too much because you actually want a little bit of that pasta water. And if you want to make your spaghetti look pretty, just give it a little twist with some tongs as you're putting it onto your plate. That's how they do it in the restaurants. Fancy is always a little bit better. I swear it just tastes better. And then, the reason I didn't drain this over a sink is because I'm actually going to use a little bit of this starchy pasta water and add it to the sauce. I'm going to start with just 1 ladleful, mix it in, and see if I like the way it looks. We're not looking to make spaghetti soup tonight, so you just want to have enough liquid to thin out the sauce a little bit. But what's going to happen is the starch that's in the pasta water is going to kind of infuse into this sauce. It's going to thicken it in a way. But what happens is when the starch that's in the sauce now touches the noodles that are also starchy, the starch is going to want to cling to itself, and that's what's going to keep the sauce really adhering to your noodles instead of slipping off and just collecting on the bottom of your plate. So actually, now that it's kind of had a second, I'm going to add in a 2nd ladleful just because I want it to be a little more saucy. If you like a really thick, chunky sauce though, by all means, you can leave it with that 1 ladleful and walk away and call it done. I want it to be a little bit more saucy than that, so I think a 2nd ladleful, yes, is going to get it right where I want. Now we're not done yet. So the same way we had added a little bit of sugar to the sauce to help mellow out some of the acid in the tomatoes, the final thing I'm going to do is add a little bit of butter to the sauce. This is real butter. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to, but what the butter is going to do, I've got about a tablespoon here just chopped up into little pats. The butter, how do I want to explain this? The fat that's in the butter is going to meld into that sauce. Excuse me while I dry off my hands. It's going to meld into the sauce, and it too is going to help cut through some of that acidity, but it's also really going to bring all of those flavors that we added to this sauce together so that everything is really harmonious. You don't taste any one thing. It kind of is just the great uniter that makes the sauce taste as mellow as if it's been cooking all day, but we did it in about 10 minutes flat. So it's a great secret to keep up your sleeve. You can also use a little splash of cream if you don't have regular butter on hand. Or like I said, if you don't want to use it and maybe you're vegan and you just want to keep the dairy out of it entirely, that's totally fine. You don't have to, but I highly recommend it. And as you can see, just stirring in that little bit of butter has now made the sauce a little bit more pale in color and a little bit more silky and velvety, and that's what we're looking for. So this basic sauce has no protein in it, and the reason I left it out is because I want it to be your choice what you want to add. This is really great. I have yet to find a protein that doesn't work in this sauce. I like it with any kind of ground protein, ground beef, ground turkey, ground chicken, all works really well. Regular chicken, I like to just do chopped up chicken breast, cooked, and then put the sauce on top. Any kind of seafood. Done this with shrimp, I've done this with fish fillets. If you've got a can of clams in your cupboard, hey, throw the clams in there and now you've got a really great clam and red sauce. That's something that people would pay $20 for at an Italian restaurant, 10 minutes flat. Lastly, if you want a vegetarian option, I do this all the time. I just dump in any can of drained beans into the sauce. It's a great way to clean out your pantry. It's a great way to get a little extra protein into the sauce, and it adds a really nice creamy flavor as the beans break down. So that's really all there is to this sauce. Now that it's had a second to just kind of mellow and let that butter melt through, it's ready to go. And since our pasta is waiting for no man, I'm going to get everything cleaned up a little bit and I'll show you how to plate. All right, so the sauce has had a chance to cool ever so slightly, just to give it a chance to mellow out a little bit. And I'm just going to give it one more quick stir, just to check and make sure I like how it looks. And as you can see, it's not real thin and soupy. I can actually see the bottom of the pan, but it's also not real thick, so that there's a little bit of sauce to cling to those noodles. And that's really one of the best things about a good spaghetti with a tomato sauce on top. So to serve it up, all I'm going to do is take a couple of ladles of this tomato sauce. I like to go right on top of the spaghetti, but I know that's kind of a dividing issue. Some people really like it mixed together so that the pasta can have a chance to absorb the sauce. I like it to change as I eat, so you do what works for you. If you like it all mixed together, by all means, you can do this in the pan. I also just like the way it looks with the red sauce on top of the white noodles. How pretty is that? And then, because I personally have mentioned before, I like a really spicy dish whenever I can get it, I'm just gonna grab another little pinch of red pepper flakes and just kind of sprinkle it all around, give it some flavor, give it an extra little pop of color. And that's all there really is to it. That is a beautiful, homemade, from scratch tomato sauce to go onto your pasta in about 15 minutes time. Perfect for any night of the week. And that's all there is to making a quick and easy tomato sauce, perfect with any pasta and any protein. As always, this recipe can be found in the description below. Please like and subscribe for more videos. I'm Jessica. Thanks for watching.